Welcome back to another episode of the Fake Nerd Book Club. This is our bi-weekly rotation series taken out of our original old programming for the original Fake Nerd podcast episodes. And now we do it bi-weekly rotation. It is my turn, and I have picked 20th Century Men. This is written by Deniz Camop with art by Stipan Morian and lettering by Aditya Bidikar. And I picked this. I am Sparkz Witty. I'm super excited to talk about this. It's a really special comic, I think, for this year. But before we get into it, I'm joined by Ryan Eliopoulos.
Yo, 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 I'm here to talk about cool comics. I make bombs to save the world.
And Ben Magnet.
Yo, I'm also here to talk about my feelings because, yeah, I got them.
I love it. You know, it's great when you have a reaction. So.
Ben, did you see Oppenheimer by any chance?
Not yet.
Interesting.
He didn't want to go.
Interesting.
I
honestly feel like this is a great double pairing with Oppenheimer because it's like, what if Oppenheimer had superheroes involved? It's kind of the feeling I got in this book.
You know what? I got that. A sense of that. It's like this is feeling very like what I don't know how to describe it, but it definitely had like superheroes, World War II, but not like the Justice Society of America superheroes. Like like the I don't want to call them Gilded Gods, but the good guys. But then it's like, hey. Here, let's put in some stuff through Vietnam and the Russian invasion of Afghanistan and some really horrible shit. And I'm just going to say it. President Thomas Good is like if Arnold Schwarzenegger and Donald Trump had a fucking baby.
Oh, yeah.
And I hate it. I know you're supposed to, but God, do I hate it.
I love it. I'm super stoked to get into it. For anyone unfamiliar, if you are deciding to listen to this, we are going to talk about the entire book, all 6 issues, as a complete story at this moment of 20th Century Man. I highly recommend picking it up and reading it for yourself. And then if you want to come back and check out our discussion,
absolutely.
I think that's the better way to go about it. I don't usually give that kind of preamble. I think a lot of our conversations are things where you can like get interested and decide to get into it yourself. And it's not necessarily a huge problem to have spoilers and things like that. But I think this one, you should go in with your own mindset about it and then hear other thoughts to filter off.
This isn't real quick. This isn't like your traditional, I was speaking to you before this. This isn't your traditional 6-issue like Spider-Man comic. And that's, again, I'm knocking at like superhero comics. I love superhero comics, but like this is a independent comic trying to do something different and trying to be really big and bold and like be really real in the realm of superhero comic books. And to try to do that on itself is an achievement. But the fact that this book looks as good as it does and is written like beautifully, like Alan Moore, like my God, I love Alan Moore. Like this is one of the most like beautifully written, like poetic pieces of terror I've ever read in my life.
Yeah.
The way that it's able to bring horror and war, but beauty, like all the type of stuff I love about genre fiction. Like this is the apex of it. This is truly like, this is one of my favorite comics I've read in my entire life. I'm just going to tell you right now. I think this thing is astonishing. And it is not a regular comic that will be for 4 quadrants. And many people do have a visceral reaction to it. And I'm happy whether you like it or not. Because again, Ben, that's what I was talking about in art. Like if it makes you feel something, then it's working. If you don't feel anything, then what's the point of being there? So whether you like it or not, I'm happy you're here, man. I'm happy we get to talk about this because this is a real book, dude. This talks about real shit that really happened through the lens of Captain America and stuff.
Yeah. Now, before we get into it, I want to preface this and make sure everyone's on the same page here. Mm-hmm. I do not think this book is bad. I think this book truly is like pretty much everything that Brian said. This book is a work of art. This book is trying to tell something different. Honestly, my favorite issue is issue 4, where almost all the dialogue is from quotes from books, from newspaper paper clippings and everything like that. That I think is really interesting and a really beautiful way to tell a story. And also it's heart-wrenching. But man, was this really hard for me to get through. And I gotta say, guys, I did not like it.
Yeah,
I am not a big fan of this book. I do see that this book is trying something different, but oof, the feelings, man, the general feelings and just it was the feelings, and also just I don't know if it's because of a lot of other stuff that's happening in real world America right now, and I see some parallels in this book that are very scary and very frightening, and I don't want to have that stuff in my headspace right now. And like Sparkz, earlier when we were doing our Haunted Mansion review, you said this book is dense. You're 100% correct. It is dense, but there were times where it was dense. I did nod off a little bit. Not to say it was boring, but it was just very, like I said, dense. Like, take a shot every time I say dense.
Look, if I'm being honest, like I reread it today in more or less one sitting, but the first time I read it, I took breaks at the chapters, and I kind of let what happened in the chapters sit with me before I went back.
This was a monthly release book, so like we are reading the trade of it.
I don't necessarily think it's designed to be gone through in one sitting.
No.
And so I think I probably could have prepared you a little better and said, maybe try and start this earlier and just do a chapter at a time.
Honestly, like of all the books that we've ever read and maybe going forward ever, this is one where I wish we've done a miniseries on it, because this is a 6-issue miniseries. It's not as a normal 6-issue comic. These are all double, triple length comics. Right. The first issue is 60 pages. It is almost 300 page. It's basically 14 issues of a comic book. And I'll be honest, like I think one of the detractors is if you're trying to read this all in one day because you're not reading it slowly or reading it month to month, then you're trying to absorb a lot of information at once. And if you're not normally if you don't normally do that, then you're unloading so much shit into your brain and you can't process all of it. And I think honestly, that is one little thing that again, reading something like this as opposed to a throwaway Spider-Man issue, like you can read that in 5 minutes. You cannot read one of these issues in 5 minutes. You have to read.
Ryan knows, just for context, that I've kind of been sitting on this one for a few months now, wanting to get it into the rotation because I've been quite excited to talk about it. But it's definitely like, Ryan's right. Like a small miniseries, maybe like 2 chapters at a time or something, might have been a better way to go about it. But like, that's a little selfish of me to put the book club into that position for something I want to pick. But nonetheless, here we are. I think any reactions are valid. To your point, Ben, because you brought up talking about like current day stuff and everything, I do want to contextualize like what we're talking about takes place in a alternate history version, essentially, of the 1980s, focused on the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, which did happen. And then like recontextualizing it into this with all this new stuff around it, with superheroics and things like that. One of the reasons, and he talks about in the afterword that Camp made this choice, is because you know what, I just want to read the quote because it's too good. So I said it in the past because the present was too confusing and the future was kind of unimaginable. And I think that's really valuable, and I really appreciate that, because you can see where you can do this closer to the current time period. But I really focus on that second part of the sentence, like the future feels unimaginable. We feel like at such a stuck point. I get not wanting to unload the heavy emotions and depression that can be attached to what's happening in this book to the current moment. There's enough going on as it is. So I do like the recontextualization. But there's something very, very apt in like what is still really resonant today, I think more than anything, is that we are so recent from the leaving of Afghanistan. And what is said about what's happening with them here is just as poignant for everything that was happening with them for the past 2 decades. So I'm really excited to dig into that. You kind of said like that you don't like it. I guess I don't know. I don't know where to start, but I think I want to start with why do you feel like you don't like it?
I feel that I don't like it. Now story-wise, no, I do like how there's like branching different stories, and there's different stories from different points of view. Like you have like an issue 4, you have the story from the journalist's point of view, and that. But when I'm introduced to Petor, essentially the Soviet Iron Man,
Star.
The Iron Star, I want to say when I was introduced to him, I was like, okay, so we're following this man's story who was taken from his mom. He's a Soviet scientist. He's one of the most smartest men in the world. And he is in Afghanistan trying to find his atomic heart, essentially. And then we go like you have like when we get, because at first like I'm trying to put this into words because a lot of times what the book was saying was flying over my head, and then I tried to reread the sentence 3 or 4 times and it still flew over my head. I'm like, what is I read the words but I cannot comprehend them.
Okay. Sure. Do you feel like a lot of what making you say you don't like the book is just maybe you need more time to just be able to digest and sit with it? Like, and I do mean not the whole thing, but like in an individual basis.
Possibly, because now I kind of do wish it was like, hey, you should probably read like a chapter a day to leading up to this, because reading this all in like, even though I did take a break halfway through, it was still like, what is going on here?
I did try to say this was going to be a heavy one.
I
could have been more specific and said,
in length.
Start now.
Yeah. Krylov. That's the journalist, Krylov.
Krylov, yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh my god.
I think the thing that I would say every story has to have great characters, but like the characters in this book are so fleshed out, so well written, and like I don't think anybody's perfect. In fact, like the only character who I thought was perfect ends up being like the thief of the MacGuffin of the comic, Azra. She steals the Iron Heart,
right?
And I'm like, man, I like this. Like it's another curveball I did not expect, but I guess she did it for good reasons.
Right?
And
she's maybe the closest to perfect.
Yeah,
if you had someone.
And again, she did it for good reasons. And then like there's like the Russian paradise in Siberia, which is like the Wonder Woman equivalent. Like there are so many. I was talking to Sparkz earlier about this, but like this really is like the modern day Watchmen. And I hate to be like reductive, but when I think of the parallels that they're doing, the types of stories that they're telling, especially like the artwork, like this is some of the most like beautiful artwork I've ever seen in a comic. And it's like there are so many different styles, like depending on what era it's in or the mood, it could be really detailed or it could be really dirty and really kind of like grimy. And especially in the violence with Six Bill, the American super weapon, that dude's like a raging caveman.
The Holocaust machine.
The Holocaust machine. I feel like he's literally like jumping out of his lines in the comic book sometimes. Like he is so kinetic, and like this book just made me feel it is a hard read, but like comics like this need to be around too, because like they can't all be light and fluffy and like
no. Now, like I said earlier, I know this book is good. Like I know when I was reading, I was looking at stories. Like I know there's substance in here. There's a lot of meat on these bones. And when I say I don't like it because it's bad. I think it's just like in my personal headspace where I am right now. This is definitely not something for me to read because like I said, it's giving me like feelings like I don't know if we want to, because I know with our book clubs we like to jump in. Like I don't know if we want to start from beginning to end, or we can jump around.
We'll
this story's non-linear. We could be non-linear.
We can jump.
All right, cool. Let's jump around. Like I want to talk about President Good. First of all, like I said earlier, it's like if Donald Trump and Arnold Schwarzenegger had a freaking baby, and I hate him.
Oh yeah.
Seeing him and also seeing a bunch of like, I don't want to say like his Republican constituents or just like all of those other people in suits.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I saw the current modern Republican Party there. Not to get super political, but dear God.
And it's also the Republican Party of 1987.
Yeah, it is the Republican Party.
It is not Ronald Reagan, but it might as well be.
It's all about the fact that like they do bend to the shareholders. But I want you to say what you want to say, and then I want to talk about this.
Yeah, essentially just like hearing what they're talking about like holding the shareholders, and especially even when President Good was talking about how he fights for, especially like his opening address about how he launched an attack on Afghanistan, and is like, we don't stand to eat, we fight for freedom, we fight for this. I'm just sitting there going, why do I hear this in Trump's voice?
Sure.
And it was just one of those things like I hear this with that scraggly
well,
voice.
Trump is very much like, in our current politics, Trump is very much like he carried the same propaganda put on very like prideful Christian America first mentality that got Reagan elected. Like he ran with that same thing, and we're talking about similar contemporary eras, similar things going on in similar ways that our American presidents behaved. So I totally get it. And obviously like he's very honest about, having to write this during a time when Trump incited a riot on the Capitol, like, you know, and how that affects like what you pour into the story, how you feel about it. So these aren't mistakes to feel that. I know it's upsetting to have to think about him, but like he's a product of the American machine.
Yeah, he is. You know, no, he is. And even though I didn't watch it at the time of this recording, the first Republican primary debate happened a few days ago. I did not watch it. I've been seeing clips of it online, and essentially the thing that ruffled my feathers the most was when a bunch of hopefuls for the highest office in land were saying that they were going to gut the Department of Education. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, that wasn't the part I thought you were going to say, but go on.
Oh no, because I have a few friends who are teachers. I have friends who not only work in the profession, but they also work with schools. They are counselors, they're educators, and just hearing that that some of them want to gut. I mean, obviously, it's taken out of context. I've only hearing like one part of them wanting to do that, but at the same time, it's like, excuse me, why do you want to gut a department of the United States government that's actually extremely vital to billions of Americans?
Right. So they can control the narrative.
Millions. Yeah, exactly. I would say millions, maybe not billions.
Yeah, maybe millions.
I thought the part...
There's only 7 billion people in the world.
Quickly, and in context of what Ben was saying, what I thought you were going to bring up is when they asked, would you still support Trump as the nominee if he is nominated but then arrested?
That turned my stomach too.
And like half of them raised their hands, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't.
All of them raised their hands.
He got put in prison. No, he didn't. No, they didn't. Chris Christie and Mike Pence in particular were like, no. That they follow the rule of law first.
No.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there necessarily, but I know what you mean. We're in a tumultuous moment in America, so this feeds into that specifically. What I wanted to comment on, because you brought up the shareholder moment and everything, when he's talking to the constituents, is that I really appreciate that there is still, like, even for Thomas Good, who's a piece of shit, and it's not that you should feel bad for him necessarily, but he's
part of the system.
He still believes in. He believes in the fight. He believes in the bullshit he's pumping, right? And these guys don't care. This is a very like Last Jedi kind of moment that Last Jedi didn't do enough with. Well, not really Last Jedi, but the rest of Star Wars. But the fact that like there are the people who like they just want war to be going on.
Yeah,
it's not about any victory is profit off of war, and that's really the thing that drives the whole machine. Which is why they were able to throw Biden so deeply under the bus for pulling us out of Afghanistan and making that like the most unpopular thing he did. Not true. But you get what I mean there. So I really appreciate that they're criticizing good, but they're also criticizing the people who fill the pockets and profit off of it, regardless of who wins a battle or whatever. They just care about war going on. And I'm glad that that's also part of the story that's integrated in there.
It's constantly just like, it's all like when you hear like those hippies and those other people who are very not disenfranchised, but they are very just like the wool's been taken off of their eyes. And they're just like, every time they hear anything about like America being, to quote the newsroom, so star-spangled awesome, they just go, oh, it's all a machine, man. And it's like, they're kind of right. I mean, you got these people who are celebrating the fact that they're making X amount of money. And it's just, it's sickening.
Well, and remember the hippie thing you're referencing, like all of that, that's in response to Vietnam. And there's a reason why Vietnam is where we kick off with this story.
Yes.
Because Vietnam is pretty much for everyone, contextually for this book, but also in our reality. That is the one where it's like, everybody knows this was gone into for the wrong reasons and done in a way where it was just completely inappropriately matched and ruining the lives of people for no good reason. That's why there was so much protest to it, was knowing actively like this is not a war we should be in. And there are parallels of how like America never really gets out of that. Right. Like we go from there to getting involved in Afghanistan and all the things like that. We never really get out of the like kind of putting ourselves where we shouldn't be. And in a way that
it is the American imperialism, or like it is the Thomas Good mentality of like, I don't like starting fights. But if there's a bully out there, I'm gonna go kill him. That's the American dream, right? That's the American way, right? That's his whole thing. And like what I love about this book is like when he's going against these like other evil white people, they're all bad, but they're coming at it from different perspectives. Like I love his speech. He's like, "You vultures make me sick. You destroy this country if it upped your circulation a few points. You have a responsibility to this country." And he's like, "Yes, sir, I do believe I do." And like they're coming at it from totally different perspectives, but they're going after the same thing. And I'm like, there's everybody has a different perspective, and I don't think many of the people in this book are good. Even our hero, like he's pretty good. He's pretty good. I think Platinov is pretty good, or Iron Star. Despite like loving to smash people into bits. Man, his suit is radical, man.
So it's like a giant metal gorilla. It's weird because Platinov, I felt for the most.
Yeah, right.
I mean, obviously he's trying to find his heart, his third heart, and he's just going through the motions. He's doing what Soviet command wants. And even when we find the other Soviet soldiers, what I also love about this book is that there's no clear cut. I mean, obviously both sides are bad. Like the Soviets are, I mean, there are some good people. Like I would argue that he's not the best person, but he tries to do the right thing as Platinov. But then of course you got some other people in Soviet command who are just like absolutely terrible. And then you, of course, you look on the other side, you see all the atrocities the Americans are doing. And I would argue that Egon is trying to fight a war. Like I want to say it was in issue 3 or issue 2, where he's talking to a reporter and it says he's trying to fight his war isn't with Thomas Good. He's trying to fight a war against war.
Yeah.
And then we get to the final 2 panels. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's some like heavy shit. And dude, like they would kill journalists, not with like crazy Jimi Hendrix poison, which is an incredible like comic book thing, right? But like people like that happens today. Like people who speak up too loud against government get assassinated. And like again, giving it this superhero lens, like it's like the type of thing where I'm like, man, like
having Americans in this comic do blatantly what we know and talk about Putin doing is really stark. I want to come back to Egon, but I want to focus on what you were saying with Platinov. What I think is so wonderful about this book is that there are two perspectives that really matter, and it's Platinov's and it's Azra's. And Platinov is so fascinating because this is not a comic where you would expect to not start from the American point of view. Let alone being in the Soviet-Russian one, but with someone who is critical of Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
Not to the degree where he'll be rebellious towards it, but to the degree where he's like, I don't know. I mean, like we're kind of everyone's terrible, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what he's come away with. Like, he's like, I know Russia's terrible, but like the Americans aren't better.
Yeah, he's like he's a realist about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because the amount of times where he tries to like turn down Krylov for the interview because he's like, trust me, the American people don't want to hear shit about what's going on out here. They don't want to know.
They don't want the truth.
No, they never want the truth.
No.
I know the truth, and the truth is terrible, and it makes you hate everything.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to know the truth. And I really like his connection with Azra. That there's this kind of kindness that he has, I especially really like the parallel of when he went and visited Paradise to being with Azra. And in the moment he's saying like, Azra, you can't have this. Like, it's not going to work. It's works.
Unsustainable. And
it's because he's been to Paradise and Paradise fell apart. Paradise didn't work.
Yeah.
And I really love that, just as like I believed in one thing that made me think maybe the world could be good.
Yeah.
And that fell apart. This will
all
fall
the pigs
apart.
died.
Right. Well, way more than that happened.
Yeah. That whole sequence was just like, yikes.
And I was really worried because this is a really heavy book that like after this Paradise segment that like we wouldn't get happy endings for a lot of these characters or something. But like specifically that final issue, man, like the final segment with with Afghanistan itself and the people, and now they're like the way that they're starting to thrive outside of this.
Yeah.
And like the book opens with like a sunny sky with nobody in panel, and then the book ends with a kid flying a kite. and how like there's hope for the future.
Right.
And that is so beautiful.
Because you
that
get
so beautiful.
Yeah, I really well. I
don't want to talk about it too much.
Yeah, I do want to get in the final issue
Yeah.
towards the end, and like what that all wrapped up into, because I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I think Platinov is such an interesting, like, for a while he feels like our main character, and then that kind of starts to give way to Krylov. But then we kind of shimmy on back to Platinov's view before we get deeply into Azra's. But even then, like, we're following Platinov, but we're really with Azra at that point.
I'm cheering for Azra.
Go ahead.
I apologize, Sparkz. I'm rooting for Azra. Panel 1. Second I see her, I'm like, go girl, do it.
Yeah. She's got an energy to her that really works.
They have such a lovely relationship that, like, she does mention at the end that there is romance involved, but like it doesn't really feel like that. It feels just like they just have a strong connection with the type of work that they do.
I love the way they do that, by the way, that she's like, and then it was almost a love story, and then turn the page and there's the other guy who walks in behind Platinov.
Ollie, yeah.
And it's like even she in her own mind is acknowledging there could have been something with Platinov, but like, that is, and Platinov clearly kind of feels it too, but like it was never going to be.
Yeah.
One of the, like, because they, once again, panel 1, or even with them talking to each other, like in the first issue when he tells her, I need your answer, I would like your answer now. And there's the bubbles where the thought bubble, or not the thought bubbles, just like the narration text saying that that's the curse of being the type of people we are. We already know the answers, but we ask anyway.
It's so good. This truly is like sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, like you can tell, like I could tell that he is just like head over heels for this woman. And while she shows a kindness and she probably has feelings for him, he knows that he will never get those feelings reciprocated in the way that he will give them to her. Right. And she also knows this, but it doesn't mean that she's a bad person. It doesn't mean that she's going to be horrible. And obviously for the Iron Star, it's the same thing. Jumping ahead to issue 5, I'm getting my issues mixed up. I might when he finally finds the heart at her village, and fine. She says, "You could have brought an army, you could have leveled this entire place, but you brought yourself, because you knew that you were gonna walk out of here." Yeah. And I'm just,
and you wanted to know. You wanted to know. You wanted to hear it. You wanted to hear the why. Yeah.
I think this book is just so well written. And like the thing that it does so well, like I didn't think there was someone who could and quip's not the right word, but like have like the dopest line of all time, like more than Jonathan Hickman. You know how Jonathan Hickman, like I just turn a page and someone will say something really dope. Every 5 seconds, somebody's saying like the most incredible thing I've ever heard in my life. And some of it is really awesome. Some of it's really tragic. Some of it's really poignant. But like, I'm thinking of when Platinov is getting basically kidnapped, and he's like, Mama, I'm gonna go. No, you'll die. No, I won't. Then you'll kill. And his mother's crying, like knowing what's going to happen. And you'll see her again, Platinov. Don't worry, I won't. Well, no, but Russia is more important than the truth. And like every single like conversation.
Funny, I heard it the other way. That's his response.
Oh, that's his response.
Okay, he says Russia's more important than the truth, and Platinov's response is funny. I heard it's the other way.
Oh, that was the next page. Okay, yeah. Every line has like, it feels like a mic is being dropped. Specifically during like the war segment is it the 4th issue where the Suicide Cowboys come, where it is nothing but quotes from all of our main characters, and every single one of those quotes is like the dopest war. Like if somebody said that in like a movie, it would be like the rousing speech, right? Yeah. And the entire thing is filled with like the most poetic, like scary stuff I've ever read.
It's really Ben, you highlighted it at the beginning that like the 4th issue is your favorite for chapter 4, where it is all our information comes down from accounts later. Even one of them talking about this as the context of World War III. Yeah. And it's really great because I was listening to Camp talk about writing this, and he really wanted it to feel like something that not a story you were being told, but a story you were learning about. Yeah. And I think that really comes across obviously in chapter 4, because you have this context of like a life that exists past this moment that you're viewing, and from different perspectives and how people are looking at it. And one of my favorites is that in the mix of all these, you have like Platinov's accounts, you have Krylov's accounts, you have American accounts, all these kinds of things. But you also have Joya's. Yeah. And Joya is an Afghanistan person who is viewing this and saying like, other people come and destroy our home, and for like all the time, just like, what is all this for? All we know is this now.
Yeah, and the reason why I like issue 4 so much is just because of how different it tells the story.
Yeah.
Like obviously the Suicidal Cowboys, the bow artists, and that whole issue, I love how they call themselves Suicidal Cowboys because they actually kind of look like the Dallas Cowboys football team. Like the helmets are, it's like, that's a football uniform.
That's not a mistake.
And not at all.
Nope, definitely not a mistake. But I absolutely agree, because part of me, as I was reading this, is like, are we going to be going into like a doomsday scenario here where like bombs start falling and everything gets like screwed up and the world is destroyed? But the fact that I was reading stuff is like, oh no, like stuff in the past tense. Yeah. And then you can, when you read other little blurbs about it, what a blurb that sticks out in my mind is the authorized biography of Thomas Good.
Yeah. Yes. You blatantly saying like, this is propaganda. Yeah. But that's unfortunately, that's a lot of times how we have to look at a lot of historical events, including Vietnam. How do you get real information about what Vietnam was like? Well, you kind of got to hear a lot of different perspectives from the people that were there, and taking a lot of information about it. Because if you just go with what the American like sanitized version will be, it won't tell you the truth about it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about the Suicide Cowboys is the comment that I think it's Platonov's story from later, that textually that we're being given, but he says like, these were people dying of cancer.
Yes.
People who were deeply in debt. America had turned its own despair into a weapon.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that is so horrifying. This idea that some of these people are
Suicide
there,
Squad.
Some of these people are there and doing this because they've bought in not only to the American idea, but they're like, hey, if I go do this, my family gets the American dream free of debt.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
I got a couple Joya quotes real quick, Ben, that I really love. Who can understand this kind of madness but the mad?
Yeah.
What kind of coward fights his battles in another man's home?
Right.
Oh. Yeah. Ooh.
Good shit. But to talk to Sparkz about the Suicidal Cowboys and how if they go and fight, they do this, their families and their next of kin, they get like these grand rewards. It's so sickening, because when I read that, I'm like, if that was, thank God it's not real. But if it was, there'd probably be a line around a few blocks of people ready to sign up.
Right, and that's the point, right? Well, I mean, like, honestly, Ben, that is part of our military machine. A lot
Kids going to college.
A lot of how people are recruited out of college is like being told, well, you just do a few years and you're kind of set for life.
Sure.
Financially, and it's not telling them everything.
It's
not giving them the whole truth.
It's right out of high school, because you guys know my younger brother was in the military. Yep, right out of high school, he went to the U.S. Army. Thankfully, his job in the military was air traffic control, and now he works for the FAA. And he's fine. He's set.
I shit you not, Ben. I think about like every single day. I think about a TikTok video that went out about the guys sitting in like their army camp or whatever, wherever they were stationed. And he said, what would you say to your recruiter if you could talk to him now? And one guy looked straight in the camera and said, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, it's awful.
Like, just like straight up, like, why'd you lie to me?
Yeah.
And it's chilling, like the way that he clearly feels about it. He's in it. And he just looks at it and he's like, why'd you lie to me? Yeah. Why was this not what I was told?
On the Suicide Cowboys, they seem so impossibly alive. In fact, they were dead men. That's what gave them such power over us. Like, just banger after banger, every single page, one of these. Killer.
Yeah. If there was another title for this chapter, it would be Oops, All Bangers.
Oops, all bangers.
They feel like a very oppressive force that just drops on them. The way that it starts off, obviously, with the sniper shot, but continues is just, and like me personally, the first time I was reading it, like I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop of Bill to show up in that fight. Yeah, but they don't do that yet, which I thought was brilliant.
It just comes right off. So that shows up on like the first page, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. Cut to halfway through this book, yo man, I'm ripping my face off. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God!
Oh, is this bothering you? Don't worry, it comes right up. Horrifying.
Incredible stuff.
But like that's also part of what I think is the genius of this book is that the book, it's easy to look at it and think that what it's setting you up for is like the big showdown between Platonov and Bill, but that's not what it's actually about, and that's not what it's setting you up for. And I really love that like Russia and America fighting is a point of the book. It's important. It's a big part of the story that's happening. But the real story is about the people who are suffering because of where they're doing it. And that specifically, like that context is why I love this book so goddamn much.
Yeah.
I think if I give this book another read, but take breaks, and proper breaks, because the more we're talking about this, the more I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. That point is really, it's poignant, and I'm understanding the book a little bit better. Obviously I'll change my tune about it, because once again, this is not a bad book.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
It was just like after I was done with it, I was like, oh, thank God I'm done with it. I don't have to read this. It was so much. It was just so like all like these mixed emotions. And I think now that I have time to digest it a little bit and I talk about it with you guys, it's like, okay, I could take a breather, and then sometime down the line, I'll probably pick it up again and give it a reread.
Yeah.
Because
sorry. I just after the big conflict is over and the president's with all the old guys again, and he's like, why are you fat fucks celebrating? Platonov survived. This country is gonna fall apart without him. And he's like, maybe so, maybe not, whatever. Conflict is good for business, Mr. President. He's like, yeah, I get into wars to win, but we have one. The winners of a war are by definition those who profit, aren't they? Like it's always about money. And like that again, you bring up the Last Jedi thing on Canto Bight. There is like, oh, we sell to the Republic and the Sith or whatever, right? Like that is super interesting, but like we don't dive into it too much. Like that is the real world, but it's also like the reality of this book. But like superheroes are involved.
There's so many. By the way, Ben, I'm stoked to hear you say it, because I really do hope at some point you get to return to this on your own time in your own way. Because I think you would get a lot out of doing so. But I just appreciate you saying that you want to do that. But there's so many good lines, and Camp and Morian talked a lot about the research that went into really wanting to represent Afghanistan correctly.
Yeah.
And all parts of the book as aptly as they could, even as they are creating a fictional story, they are using a lot of real world contemporary touchstones or things that are actually historically true. I really appreciate that the centralization of Afghanistan, not just as a place where this war is happening, but a people who it is happening to. I think is so striking and profound. Camp talks about it in the afterword that one of the things that he wanted to accentuate is that like when we go somewhere, we are when we are encountering others in a war, they have everything we have. They have fear, they have joy, they have dreams, they have pain, they have tragedy. All of these things are real, but we so often just are given insurgents as a word, not children, insurgents, or things like that. And the way that is reduced down, and like the point of the book is to make you to engage your empathy for people who are caught in the situation that is all too real.
Yeah. This is a book that I already love. But again, this final segment, once the big battle's happening, if I could choose, I'd choose anything, almost anything but this. But it's not our story anymore. It's theirs.
Yeah.
It's their story. We are furniture, our primitives, not people. In their story, our deaths are not celebrated or mourned or noticed. In their story, our deaths do not count. We are not even numbers to them. And that is what I really love about this book. Because like as big as it can get, it's always down to like the people that it's affecting.
And my favorite thing about it, and I think because you were right at that point, I do want to touch on the end now.
Yeah.
Is Azra and us getting slowly the information, because first it's, do you trust him? And we get no dialogue from her. Then we get to the next chapter and it's like, of course I trust him. still not having the full context. And when we get to the end of the story, we recognize she said, he's a bomb. I trust a bomb to explode.
I love that line.
And in doing so, learn that Azra moved everybody. Everybody's already gone before the bomb blows up. And that's such a wonderful, beautiful thing. And as she's doing that, she's contextualizing the story like, this was my role in this. I was the spy. My sister was a scientist. My sister is leaving with this group. My brother is a holy man. My brother has no place in war. He's leaving with this group.
Yeah.
This is the end of my story, so that future, that hope goes on.
And boy, does he do a huge ass explosion. And then he's like, there's no way in Dari to say, I'm sorry, only forgive me, after he destroys the place.
Yeah.
This is just incredible. Like, the artwork is so, I love the artwork because again, like the mech design is so detailed, but then when you get to some of the people and when they're like really reacting, like their faces are extremely exaggerated, and some like it's like popping off of their face.
Yes.
Like it almost is like the closest thing it compares like something like you know, like the One Piece clip that keeps going around where he's like running like Looney Tunes, where it's like jumping off a frame. It's like it is so like exaggerated but clean at the same time. It's really unique.
If I may, there's a scene I want to highlight for a hot second about the art. And this was definitely a part in the book where I was reading this, because I mean, obviously issue 1, fantastic art. Issue 2, I'm like, okay, I think I can see what this guy's going with. It's only 6 panels, or not even panels really, it's 6 images. But the 5th one, the middle on the bottom one with the lion, where his face is all skewed and turned into a nightmare monster. And then
I love this so much.
Yeah.
Where he's, because I mean, you're talking, you know, like he's talking to like this British guy or this British secret operative or something. I don't even know exactly. I don't remember exactly what the line was, but the fact that his face goes askew, it kind of reminds me of those videos and those horror films, not where it's trying to do a jump scare, but when you're looking at someone and then like the image flickers to reveal their true self. To reveal what they really are underneath, and then the image goes back to what they want you to perceive them as. The second I saw that, I'm like, this dude's a monster.
Yeah,
in both a literal and figurative sense. And then he gets smooshed, and then a few pages later, I'm like, okay, cool, kill that monster.
I love that whole segment of the Lions, like this underground, like super spy organization, but also like
that they stumbled upon and made work for them.
Yeah. But also they're like the stokers of the war flames. Like the reason he turns into a monster because you're hearing Platinov explain all the things this person has done in his life, like stoking tensions between the Hindus and the Muslims in Kenya. Doing slave stuff, those terrible starvation campaigns in the Caribbean, bus bombings in Ireland, just like stoking the flame of every possible conflict to keep the war profiteering alive. Which again is unfortunate the reality of the world, but like
you also importantly learn in that chapter how much Platinov hates spies.
Yes,
which you don't learn until the end. Azra is
and
I think it's really great. But that's the thing is like he does hate spies just inherently. That's what he thinks of them. Is that they're the worst. But he's wowed and impressed by Azra's dream.
Yes,
for Afghanistan, and I have to say it's one of my favorite pages personally. Is the Well, I love what Ryan's pulling up, which is totally different.
We haven't even talked about Chernobyl Dragon.
No, we need to talk about yes. Let me one more second before we get to that guy. So one of my favorite pages is the page where she shows him the part that finally makes him like be stunned, which is the desert turned green.
Oh yes.
And like what they can have. And that's so beautiful and powerful in this moment that it's like, look, we don't want what you want to give us. You know, we don't want your way. We want our own way. And I think that's so poignantly true of Afghanistan and many other places that we've kind of stepped our foots into.
And again, Platinov is a guy like he's not America, but he is like this. Wait, you're self-sustaining? You're on your own? Like this shouldn't work, right? This can't be like you're better communist than me. And she makes the joke that like I'm a better communist than you. Are you mad about it? He is kind of mad about it.
Yeah, and he's like, they'll never let you have this.
They won't know about it.
It doesn't benefit. The way that they want, and if it works here, they know people will think it'll work anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really
crushed a dream.
It's really dazzling and striking. I think it's so well executed the way that they have this ideal they're chasing. And like, again, another part, we talked about like the Trump stuff and the parallels, but important to note that also a lot of what was weighing on their mind at the time with writing this was Russia's invasion of Ukraine that started last year. Jesus.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And so that's also, like this is thinking about everyone who gets affected when invasion like this occurs.
Yeah.
So yes, let's talk about the collective man.
Oh my God,
and
I
the
did
battle
not
with the co-op created kaiju at Chernobyl by the U.S. and Japan.
By the coolest like one shot that I wish I can read in the future. I didn't like. I was feeling Watchmen stuff. Like, all right, we're doing political stuff with some superhero tinge, but like the fact that like we got like a is he Russian? Do you remember?
It seems to be the implication.
Or Ukrainian, but yeah, a Russian Superman, basically.
Because this is still Soviet
Or Dr.
Russia.
Manhattan. Yeah, it's true.
It doesn't get broken up. So this is Soviet Russia.
That's true. Yeah. So like they just got him on retainer, and he's just like chilling out, just like being really cool and echoing and having like a cool like sing-songy voice. Really cool design. I loved like when he gets sad, he like gets like tall and lurches over, like just really, really cool, unique design for this type of character.
I also got a little nervous, I'll be honest, when he first showed up. Me personally, I was like, oh, are we introducing like Superman to this?
Yeah.
Because I kind of don't want that. And that's really not what it is.
Yeah.
He is like a great and powerful force, but he's kind of a great and powerful force who's like, I'm maintaining paradise. And that's supposed to be the goal, but he's looking at too much of the world.
Yeah.
And he's seeing too much desperation.
He's kind of like
despair.
Like a Dr. Manhattan guy.
Yeah.
For a split second when he shows up, I'm like, is this God?
Sure.
God, right? This is
Russian God.
Is this Soviet God? But they don't believe it. I mean, oh yeah, there's another character I wanted to talk about for a hot second who I actually liked because if we may can jump off from the collective man for a hot second.
Yeah, he's a small part of it. Yeah, he gets taken out. Doesn't he kill himself? Is that what happens?
He did. So Platonov says as he's telling the story that he's not really sure what it is. There were a lot of different rumors about what was happening.
Yeah.
But the general consensus seems to be the collective man ultimately started destroying himself and his collective selves.
Yeah.
It turns into an all against all out of depression.
Yeah.
He thought too much of the world. It reduces him to a 100-year-old child.
A giant space baby.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I thought that was, I thought that in his own self-destruction of his many selves, he is destroying paradise itself.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very poignant, but let's go where you want to go.
I want to talk for a hot second about Giant.
I love Giant.
Yeah, baby.
I'm so happy you want to bring up Giant.
Put the Bible in his belt.
So good.
No, it wasn't the Bible. It was the Communist Manifesto.
Manifesto, sorry. Well, his Bible.
He couldn't get through the Bible.
That's right.
He said, I love that. That's another one of those good lines where he's like, I couldn't get on board with conception of the universe to start with because like it always implies an idea. When you see a swollen belly, someone got fucked.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
such a like, there's no way it can be this perfect. Somebody had to get screwed.
Yeah. The reason why I like him is because sorry, I just tapped my own screen there. He talks about how there are warriors who write the scriptures of their holy book, like the Quran in this case, and like they give them tattoos. It's also kind of like how people give themselves Christian tattoos or Buddhist tattoos, religious-ish tattoos. And since he is a communist, he doesn't believe in that. He's like, but instead of doing that, I just carry he always has a copy of the Communist Manifesto in his belt, in his front pocket. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, you're the same. Now, I understand where he's coming from, but also that whole, it's religious fanaticism while it's not being religious fanaticism. Like even in chapter 4, like when he kisses the book and he puts it in his belt and then eventually sacrifices himself for the journalist whose name is
Man is Fluid.
Krylov. Yeah, man. Ooh.
Yeah, that came around dark.
That did. Okay.
That is the kind of like stop you in your tracks moment of the book.
Yeah, once again, visceral reactions, am I right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is fully committed to the communist way. He is. Why did you have to pull that page up, Brian?
Because contact, baby.
Man is fluid.
Man is fluid.
Man is fluid. Because Giant is essentially he is like those religious fanatics who will go to war for their god.
Well, yeah,
and he is.
he's acknowledging like there's a power in that belief because that's what he's admiring about them. He's saying like I'll watch them like, you know, get really messed up and keep coming, like wherever their words are, they are untouched. And that gives him the idea of the manifesto and his belief in it. And notably, he drops the manifesto to grab the helmet.
Yeah.
He was pulling it out and he drops it to grab the helmet and save Krylov.
Yeah.
That's
he's a great character. He's very I honestly kind of wish we got a little more internality with him.
Yeah.
But it's not his story. But I do really like him. I think he's an excellent like addition to it, of someone who's kind of like the more idealist version of Petar, where he can see the hope and inspiration of Soviet Russia and believe in its ideals and want to perpetuate them. He believes completely in the good thing, and Petar does not believe in the good thing.
It's a grenade. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a grenade that does him in.
Yeah. God, this might be a not so clear-cut analogy or comparison between Giant, but the more I think about him, the more how he kind of reminds. Okay, who here has watched Mobile Suit Gundam Seed the whole way through?
No.
Never mind. I'm not going to say anymore because you're not going to get it.
Reminds you of a guy from there.
Sorry, Ben. But he has this. But he's also like, you know, his precision for murder is striking. I really, there's a scoped lens sniper shot in the art where we just see through the lens the hole in the man that he has created. Krylov has a particularly good line about it that I forget right now, but I think it's very strong. Yeah, Giant's a really nice character because he kind of exists in this like he kind of gives you the opposite spectrum of the same side of the war from Petar.
Yeah.
He gives you that I'm bought in view. And Petar is doing it, but he's not bought in.
And he's like jolly.
Yeah.
He's like he's having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely the type of person. He's that lovable soldier who you're like, man, I hope he's gonna stay. Like, man, this person's a great person to be around. And then the second I say that, they're dead.
Krylov's It chapter and the story about Mars that he becomes obsessed with.
Oh my God, the Mars stuff. Yeah. Propaganda isn't real.
And then he's like, this is all bullshit. And then Padalov shows up and he's like, no, they did that. They sent them there. We lost communication. They didn't even bother to go check for the bodies. They were done with it. And so like the idea that it's like, if they're fine, but we've lost communication, there's just like plentiful fields and children able to be on Mars in their colony that they've established, but they don't know.
And then after he learns all about
Krylov's like, that's bullshit. That's not true.
So like he's like, he was playing with me, wasn't he? That was shit. It wasn't true. And then he's like, what is truth?
Yeah. And then that drives him a little cuckoo.
There could be a colony on Mars.
Everything he's seen plus that becomes the centerfold of his own what am I doing here moment.
Listen, Anne Hathaway
drives him into the desert screaming about Mars.
Yeah, Anne Hathaway is somewhere on the planet. Just like Interstellar.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. I think Krylov's chapter is very strong, especially for and then when Petar saves him, they talk about like how worried he was about him. And Giant was inconsolable because they didn't want Krylov to die.
The rescue of Six Bill by Thomas Good is so awesome. He's like, there's no one else like us. Like, we're the last two living real Americans. Like, Cortez, I want these wheels up in 20. And for God's sake, get this man a uniform. As if he just wasn't just like out in the wild naked. Just put him right in battle ready, baby.
Right. And then I did want to highlight the Egon Teller stuff,
which
is Good approaching him early on and basically saying like, I want you to make more super soldier weapons. I want you to do more of this. And he's like, no, I'm out. Like I'm jaded about that. I'm in a war with war. And even though they get him with the Hendrix poison, which Good is not pleased that he had to do, but he did it anyway. The fact that he bought a whole law firm, for the newspaper to go after Good is so awesome. I love it so much.
It's like one just giant middle finger to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole bit was really good.
I'm a big fan of when comics are a graphic medium and you can do whatever you want. You can do your regular panels. You can have just one big splash page, but also you can do what this is what Ed Brubaker does a lot in his comics. He has these basically like little essays on either side, and it's basically we get the Egon story told through basically like a short novella over the course of a chapter. Yeah. And that's beautiful. I love that. I love reading, so I don't mind reading more than usual if it's in context. And like I'm sure they tried to find a way to incorporate that into the story and it wasn't working out. So like, let's just dedicate like hardcore page time to this.
Right.
And I think every time it showed up, I loved it. And again, like his ending is like really tragic and like believable in this world.
I love when it's detailing when he went to the door of where he thought his son lived.
Oh.
And the guy tells him that his son doesn't live there anymore. And it talks about Egon feeling like this man didn't even care about the bomb he just dropped at my feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he had no recognition for it, just started talking about the neighbor's lawn.
Yeah.
In the end, the neighbor thought that he was just really upset about the neighbor's lawn being so bad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. It's so bitter. Yeah, I really like the execution on that kind of storytelling, and then the kind of come around like F you, I meant it, I'm done with war and I want you to suffer for what you're trying to propagate by hiring that law firm. I thought that was excellent.
Mm-hmm. I love, like, it's so sad, the ending. Like, he was too tired to lift his hand, much less work out life and death. Is that Hendrix? Just like a little thought. Like, he's been listening to music this whole time, but like it's been Jimi Hendrix and he doesn't realize it. Like, it's awful, man. Oh, this is great. He thought about the old days, about heroes, hills, and cities on the moon. All he'd ever wanted was to know how it all worked, including especially this.
Yeah.
And then he beautiful effort, disappointing results. That's like a through line for, unfortunately, his whole life, which is that's a sad Oppenheimer right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's supposed to be a hint of that. That is like, if Camp even talks about in the afterword, like boiling everything down, trying to say what this book is really about: beautiful effort, disappointing results. And that's ultimately what all of it is.
I'm sorry, did you say something to say, Ben?
I was, but I lost it.
Sorry, Ben.
I briefly talked to Sparkz earlier about like behind the scenes of this. Like, this started out as a much simpler book. He had the idea of like, I want to do like cool Cold War stuff, but like the president is Captain America and Iron Man is in Russia, right? And it started at that level, and then as he worked on the script more, as he got Stipan Morian on as the artist, it drastically changed to something more dramatic and more real. And the more research he did, the more real he wanted to be to Afghanistan. Because if you're gonna do a story like this, like, you got to be true to it. Because like, you don't want to just be like, you don't want to be like a phony. It's like talking about a culture you don't understand, right? Because like that happens honestly a lot in superhero comics specifically, right? So like the fact that this is so well researched, it is like ripped from the headlines literally, because again, these are real life events.
The way that in Azra's last chapter, she gets to talk about the history of their area and Ga, and in our, there is no
it wasn't.
It's a concept we're familiar with.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so good at being a spy. It's because I was and I wasn't.
Yeah. That's beautiful shit, man.
Which is so true to what they researched, and I think that's really well integrated in it. Again, like, I didn't start the book the first time I read it knowing how much it was going to end up. This is ultimately a story about the people who suffer at the locations where wars occur.
Yeah.
Whether that be the people fighting it or the people who just happen to live where it's happening. And I thought it was so strongly executed. Specifically, God, I love the page where the sky should be full of kites, but it's the child and mom with the bombs coming down.
Oh yeah. That is just like
chilling.
Yeah. Very chilling.
Yeah.
And thankfully that they don't explode, but still it's like you look up, you see that, you go, oh.
Yeah. That's reality. Yeah, man. This book it's really, really special. And like, it's so cool that like
she even like comments in like, it was a miscalculation. With the bombing.
Yeah.
Our deaths would have been a mistake had the bombs gone off. Like, they weren't even supposed to be hit.
Man.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, man, this book's fantastic. I'm so glad you picked it. This is one of those things where, like, I love this book so much. For, like, I almost wish this were an ongoing, but like this book is like basically 14 issues of a comic. Sure. It rolled into six issues, so like I basically got like a long story. I'm gonna come back to this. I don't know if it's something where like I want this creative team to come back to this world all the time, because that could dilute it, as if they don't put, not that they won't put as much love into it, but you know what I mean? Like with something this seminal, like I don't want another Watchmen, right? Like I don't need Watchmen.
Right.
They did it though. So like I love this world so much.
I would definitely like Camp and Morian to work together again.
Absolutely.
I don't need it to be about this world.
Yes,
at all.
Thank you. That's actually what I'm looking for. I want this team to work together. And we haven't really brought it up, but like Aditya Bidikar, the lettering is exceptional, and it's something that you don't really notice like when it's really good. Because it's like lettering is not something you really think about, but like those bubbles don't show up there on purpose. Like they are placed by everyone has to communicate where that shit shows up. And specifically, in like the very first issue, when the helicopter blade is been exploded, when it's falling, it's saying fuck as it's falling.
Yes,
that's so good.
Yeah, and the lettering also, it's well chosen to help you know who is speaking for the monologue bits.
Absolutely,
I never got confused because of how it was structured.
Absolutely, Planetov used like square boxes, and then Asla used kind of like jagged boxes. Yeah, absolutely. That, and you can always tell who was speaking. That's a great point.
And it's important to note, like, you know, because Camp talks about in the afterword, and it's been spoken about in interviews. He sought out working with Morian and Bidikar. Like, this was a desire to have this team together, and I think they really pulled off something that is not, it's obviously, like, we've talked a lot about like what's strong about the narrative and the politics and everything that it's speaking to, but it's also just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book. It's incredibly well laid out. The art is exceptional. It's some of the best stuff in comics today, and
it's so ununiform. Like we are so used to, and this is not me knocking anybody, but like just lots of grids, because like that is what comics do, and that is an easy way to make a comic, right? And like a lot of my favorite comics are a lot of grids, right? This is taking chances, and it is being really weird with some of its layouts. And again, like the art changes from page to page sometimes, just depending on how the vibe is feeling.
I wouldn't say there's a format.
There's no format whatsoever. It's you could, like, if you didn't know any better, you could think multiple artists work on this, but it was one dude.
It truly feels like it's emotional storytelling.
Yeah,
and like you do feel the collaboration between Morian and Bidikar.
Yeah,
with the language that Camp is giving them, like you feel the desire to. It's like each page is approached in its own way of how is this a piece of art? Yeah. How is this supposed to make you feel, both because of where the words are and because of where the visuals are and what the visuals are, and how they're telling you the story. Every page does feel like, regardless of the language, it is meant to make you feel something.
Every page is valuable. Like truly, like every page it feels like either it has a beautiful piece of art or a beautiful a spoken dialogue. It has this. Every page is could be framed. Yeah. I think it's lovely. Again, this took like 4 years to make, and like you feel it. This is like one of the most impressive comics that I've ever read. I think it's truly astonishing. Even though, like, Ben, I know you didn't like totally connect with it. Like all the conversation we had was really lovely, and like you did have a reaction to this book, and that's exactly what I wanted you to do. So like, thank you for being here. Like you do like this book more than you think, Ben. I promise you.
I think I do.
Conversation.
I think I do. I think I just need another reading of this, probably a few months, maybe a year or so down the line.
Soon.
Yeah, not immediately soon, but this is definitely a book that I would like to come back to, and with like maybe not like completely forget about it, but be like, okay, let me sit down, let me take breaks. Now that I know really what I'm getting into, I won't just like try to marathon it or blitz through it, where now I can sit and digest it. Because the more we talked about this, the more the discussion we had, it's like the more I'm like, oh shit, maybe I like this book more than I thought I did.
Yeah.
And it was
this is definitely like I like I know dense was the word, but like you books like this, you got to live with the book. It's not a book you just meet halfway. You got to go all the way for these types of books.
Yeah,
like, you really got to like divert the time and like and the love that these creators put into it.
This book asks you to think about what it's giving you, and that's not just in terms. Again, it's not just in terms of what the words are, but what are you supposed to feel when you're looking at it. It's demanding that of you.
Absolutely.
It's saying, I want you to look at me, and I want you to have a reaction, and I want you to feel something, and you do want to take the time to do that. So in whatever way that works best for you. But definitely, like, you highlighted such wonderful things that you did enjoy about the book. Like, I definitely think you liked it. And I think it's very strong, just even for it to get so much out of you, as this passing read, that you don't feel like you had the time to fully integrate with. I think that just speaks volumes about what it does.
Absolutely.
So,
I would say that there are, not to, like, once again, to bring up Watchmen one more time, but you know how Watchmen is considered is on, like, Time Magazine's 100 greatest literature novels ever written?
I agree.
I feel that this book, maybe not make it the top 100 because lists are subjective, but this book shouldn't be looked at as a piece of comic books. This book should be looked at as literature, because I could definitely see this book is transcending the comic medium in a way where this is literature. It is taking themes, it's taking story elements that of course people are aware and they know of, but it's twisting it, and I don't know if perverting it is the right word, but it's taking what we think we know about something and completely putting it on its head, and it's sculpting it to a brand new thing that it gives us, like you said, it was all drawn by one dude. There were times I'm like, did they change artists halfway through this book? And then it's like, oh wait, no, there's a style I remember. And it's like, it's just the same guy because he's just that goddamn good.
Real quick, I thought when we got to chapter 4 and we got to this cover, I thought they were going to be monkey men. Like big monkey men.
At first, I saw the dude with a bat, and then below was like, why do they look like football players? And I'm like, oh, that's because they're the Suicidal Cowboys.
Baseball, football, it's all of it, baby.
Yeah, I do now, after conversing with you guys, I think you pulled a Ryan and Last Jedi bit on me that I do like this book more than I thought. It is definitely something that needs to be digested, and is definitely something that, even though that my immediate visceral reaction was I do not like it, even though I know this is a good book, but the more I talked about it, I do think this is literature. This should be a literature book, and something that honestly should be studied, really. I think this is a good piece to study. Like, we've talked about a bunch of other comic books that should be studied. Thankfully, there are some books in school curriculums that aren't banned.
Yes.
Just stare at certain... I just remember walking into a Barnes & Noble with my mom one day, and I saw Mouse in the history section. I just went off on how I was pissed off that book was banned for bullshit.
Yeah, it's true.
And my mom doesn't know anything about Mouse. I told her what it was, that it was a comic book biography of the artist's father who survived Auschwitz. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, this book hits hard.
Yeah.
Just like 20th century men.
Yeah, just like 20th
unfortunately, unfortunately, I doubt anytime soon this will get the kind of attention that Watchmen gets, because it's a little too overt with its criticism of both war and America.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, but still,
it is definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
You need to stew on this book, I think, is the proper response. You need to, you need to stew on it. It is a slow read. It is not a slow read, but you should read it like a slow read, straight like a slow burn. Let it simmer, and then you can get into the tenderized good stuff. Don't like flame broil it right out of the gate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I laid on my bed. I kicked my feet up. It was a beautiful Saturday, like at noon. I heard my friend talk about a movie I didn't see. I'm like, man, life's good right now. It's pretty good. Pretty cool. Check out Haunted Mansion review in like 8 months.
Whenever it comes out. But you convinced me. I think I do like this book more than I thought I did. Okay.
Then whenever you're ready for a second pass, I'll happily.
This is one of the things where I don't want all of my favorite things to turn into live action, but like this, like an HBO version of this, like with like the right creative team, like this would hit really, really hard. Especially if again, because like HBO is so good about they did a sequel to Watchmen, and it was actually really good, opposed to like the comic sequel. And that was not afraid to go after really serious issues. So like again, like as long as they give you a big ass paycheck and you want to do it, like this is a book where like not a lot of people are going to read this book because people don't read comic books. You know what I mean? Like, and this is a serious piece of art. And like, if it takes an adaptation to get people's eyes on this, then I'll do it. But like, man, this is such a special book. And I love it so much. So thank you, Sparkz. I would have read it eventually, but it's here now. And it came out this year. So you bet your ass it's on my top 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will definitely say the next time I do read this, I would like to borrow that hard copy because I think that also would help me like get into it more. Because reading that book on a tiny little screen, it kind of takes away some of the magic.
Screen. Sure.
I read a comic on a 45-inch television.
I at least read it on an iPad. No, if I have to read it digital.
No, I'm excessive. I'm excessive.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. 20th century.
Yeah, I'm really glad. I thought this was a great conversation. There's honestly so much more that could be said. There's so much more we could pick apart because this book is like that.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of what we're doing, I really appreciated this. I'm glad that there was so much for you guys to respond to. Obviously, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad that you were able to bring so much of what you did enjoy about it and actively are thinking about it for the future. To it, Ben, and kind of got your like in live digestion as it was happening, which is totally fine. Oh my God. Oh, there is like, I did want to mention, it's my favorite joke in the whole book. And it's when Krylov is with them on the mission. And he said, Padalov told me to leave all my equipment behind. He was going to fix me up with what I needed for the mission. So I was like, oh, equipment from one of the world's greatest minds is going to be right here in my hands. It's a little dinky kid's Mickey Mouse telescope, and he's like,
"Oh yeah, the little."
Such a good gag. I love it so much. Yeah, telescope. He's like, you see the little Mickey Mouse, just like not completely Mickey Mouse, but like it's Mickey Mouse on it, and it's so funny.
That's good. That's good. That was good. Oh man, is it my turn to pick for the book club next time?
Ooh,
do think it is.
Good question.
Because it was B-Dog, and then it was me, and then it was you. So that leaves
guys. Guess what? I actually know what I want to pick for the book club next time.
Yes,
19th century myth.
No. Yeah. So we were talking about how it was 20th Century Fan wasn't light and fluffy. I'm taking us to light and fluffy land with the unbelievable Gwenpool.
Yeah, all right. Is that you know what year? Do you have the info?
It is by Christopher Hastings. The art is by Guri Hiro. Hold on, let me just get some more. Try to get some more. I want to double check because I pulled up
like a volume 1.
It is volume 1. Yeah, it is volume 1. Believe it. I am trying to. I'm trying to find. Yeah, Christopher Hastings is the author. Guri Hiro is the artist.
She's awesome.
They are actually it's 2 people. Guri Hiro is like a team.
Oh, that's right. You're right. That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And I want to give it a little bit of a reason why I'm picking this book. Please. Because you might think like me picking Unbelievable Gwenpool was like, what the hell? Unbelievable. So there's a comic YouTuber I watched a few videos on called Comic Drake, and he did a video about essentially the rise and fall of Gwenpool. I was watching, and he would put up, and he was talking about the first run of the Unbelievable Gwenpool and essentially how amazing it was and how it takes a character that he initially hated and turns into something that he really loved. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this book a shot because all I know of Gwenpool is that she spawned from the Gwen Stacy variants and it's stuck.
Yep, that's true. It was a very popular idea, and then she showed up in a comic. And they're like, "That's cool," and people didn't much like her. And then now she's had multiple miniseries now that have been really, really successful and awesome. So like, I'm glad you picked this, man, because I've been waiting to jump onto this myself.
Yeah, and also anything with that Guri Hiro draws, I just want to latch onto it because I absolutely love their art.
Yeah, it is a very, very good stuff.
Yep. So great. Unbelievable Gwenpool, Volume 1. Believe it.
Naruto.
Fantastic. Super excited. Excellent pick, Ben. All right.
Thank you.
That will do it for our current episode of the Fake Nerd Book Club. You will check out The Unbelievable Gwenpool in 2 weeks. That'll be here. In the meantime, our intention is to get our alternate rotation going, which should be Wasted Space Volume 4. If you need to catch up on Wasted Space, please go do so. We have the first 3 volumes that we did a few years back, and we also had a lovely interview with Michael Morisi, who had not finished the series at the time. So check all that out. That's here on YouTube and on the book club feed. And then we will be back with Wasted Space Volume 4, hopefully next week. Brandon also has a Star Trek book club somewhere in the pipeline that's coming out, so be on the lookout for that. And we'll be back again for our usual rotation, hopefully with Brandon. I imagine so, for Unbelievable Gwenpool. All right, and you can catch us then. In the meantime, we also have a lot of Basement Arcade stuff out, so you should go check that out. We're going to have more coming out pretty frequently, so keep an eye on it on the channel here on YouTube for that.
And I'm going to get off my ass and get some more Basement Arcade pause menus recorded and descriptions done and other stuff to give to Sparkz, because I'm so sorry, my friend, I suck.
It's okay.
Hey, if you want to record something with me, I have a little extra time.
Hey, yeah, there is stuff I want to record with you actually. So let's do it.
Ooh,
I'll have my people call your people.
Hot sizzles, hot sizzles here. Okay,
so
we got that. If you are an audio listener, please check out our YouTube channel. Check out fakenerdpodcast.com for any updates on anything we're doing. As we alluded to, there is a movie review for Haunted Mansion that was recorded. A few other things, shows and movies reviews that you can't check out right now because we are in full support of the strikes. So we will not be releasing them until the strikes are over. So hang out and wait on that. In the meantime, we've got a lot of good book club and Basement Arcade content coming out for you. Also, Animation Station. Ben's been doing that with Brandon for Digimon, and we're doing what we can here. So check all that out. Check out fakenerdpodcast.com for all the information there. Obviously, a thank you to everyone who listens and catches us on YouTube or through the audio feed. And please rate and review wherever you get us. We greatly appreciate it. Big shout outs to Mike Matola for doing our logo for Fake Nerd Book Club and Jimmy Vellucci for doing our music. We love those guys. You can check them out on TikTok, on Twitter. No, not Twitter for Mike. Instagram,
TikTok.
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok. That's where Mike is.
Twitter, not really Twitter for Jeremy either. Let's be honest. He almost never uses it. You can check all that out. Until next time. I am Sparkz Witty. You can find me at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, just getting excited about all the wonderful things we have lined up in Basement Arcade, including scaring the shit out of Ben.
You can find me, Ryan Oleopoulos, also really excited to scare the poopy pants out of Ben, because we just have a lot of lovely, awful things planned for October at DJ Tony Snark.
You can find me actually really wanting to get back to Sparkz and Ryan's house so we can record more Dead Space, because Dead Space is really fucking fun at Ben Magnet 27 at Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. You can also find me writing for Old School Gamer Magazine, Fusion Gaming Magazine, GoNintendo.com, as well as playing Mary Frankenstein in D & Dark. At the time of this recording, which I assume this is going to come out sooner, we're on a hiatus until October. I believe it's October 13th when the show will come back. But yeah, our mid-season finale just wrapped up. It's up. Go ahead, start. If you've listened to it, awesome. If you haven't started yet, go start it. It's great. These guys love the show, and which makes me really happy because they like something that I do on the side.
It's true. It's a great show.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this book club. We'll see you next time, and until then, stay fake nerds.